Good morning. Nils, thank you so much for traveling so far to be here with us today.
Thanks a lot, Anita. Great to be here.
Can we have a little bit of applause for Nils from the very back row if you can hear us?
Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to thank Patrina Gentile from the Globe and Mail for helping do some of the legwork of this panel today. Please send positive vibes her way. I think she's a little under the weather today. My name is Anita Balakrishnan. I am a reporter at The Logic. I do a weekly newsletter called Shift about automotive technology in Canada. And The Logic, if you're not familiar, covers tech and business. We focus on doing two things really well. We do a daily roundup of the most important tech and business stories in Canada. Every one is 2 paragraphs or less with a conversation starter, and we do fact-checked reporting. So Volvo has such a strong reputation for safety that it's essentially synonymous in the automotive world. So there's almost no one better in the world to be here with us today to discuss the next big trend of autonomous driving. In journalism school, they say never to do an interview right before lunch because everyone is only thinking about what's going to be for lunch. So I'm going to do a little warm-up activity to make sure that Nils has our full attention. So could I have a show of hands of people here who had to turn on their headlights manually in their first vehicle that they drove? Keep your hand up if you didn't have GPS or a backup camera in your first car that you drove. Hands up if you had to crank up your windows in your first car. How many of you seatbelts weren't required legally when you first started driving? Did anyone here have an 8-track deck in their first car? All right, well, you've all aged very beautifully, I must say. So I think that's a good reminder of how much technology we've already adapted to help make our cars safer. So Volvo is a huge company. I think many people don't realize how big of a company it is. So I know Volvo Automotive's autonomous solutions has a focus that's beyond passenger cars. So could you talk a little bit about the areas that you're focused on using autonomous technology and making vehicles beyond just passenger cars safer?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, first and foremost, sometimes people think that Volvo Cars and Volvo Group is the same thing, but actually we are 2 separate businesses with 2 different ownership groups. So Volvo Group, which I represent, we are the leading technology company when it comes to transportation. So Volvo Trucks, Mack Trucks, Renault Trucks, but also Volvo Construction, Volvo Buses, that's the entity, or that's the business I represent. But I represent, in fact, what we call Volvo Autonomous Solutions. And we have been created in 2020 for Volvo Group, looking at autonomous technology. It is, of course, something which we, understood will play a major role going forward. But then we analyzed, what is the scope of autonomous technology, and we realized the scope is very, very wide. But in order to achieve something, we decided we need to be focused. And in order to get focus, we've looked a little bit, okay, where is it where we have expertise? Where are we strong? What's our heritage? And then we overlaid that with the possibilities of autonomous technology. And then we identified 3 segments, 3 industry verticals. And those are long-haul trucking, so automating those. This is a major initiative we have. And then we also decided to have a focus on ports and logistics, but also on quarry and mining applications. So for those 3 industry verticals, we're developing then autonomous solutions for our customers. And of course, for each industry vertical, we have a different approach. Maybe beginning with quarry and mining, which in particular for Canadian audience is of course of interest. Here we've decided to create a full stack solution. And full stack solution means for us that we have developed our own virtual driver. And we're using that with our own autonomy-enabled trucks or autonomy-enabled construction machines or mining machines. But by having a full-stack solution, we, of course, are rather attractive for our customers as we create something which we say is safety by design, not necessarily safety by process. But with this solution, we are actually also unique. There's no one else from an OEM space who can provide you with both the software and the hardware, and then of course the integration. Same approach we have for ports and logistics. But when we speak about applications on public road, like trucking, there we actually have a different approach. Here we work with a partner called Aurora, which is one of the leading AD companies, autonomous driving companies in the US. But it's also known that we've made an investment into Vabi, which is actually here a local company from Toronto, which is the shining star as we speak in the space.
Thank you for that. That's so much. So I think maybe we start with trucking. A lot of people are familiar with the challenges of trucking. Such a dangerous job. It's very hard on your body. And I know that there's a lot of talk about, is AI going to replace jobs? But there are also a lot of ways that technology can make these jobs less dangerous and more enjoyable for people, especially in these sectors like mining and trucking where there are labor shortages. Even things like, having fewer pedals in an electric vehicle, I know makes it much easier on a driver's back, for example. So what are some ways that you're thinking about autonomy in ways to sort of make those types of jobs like trucking more pleasant and safer for potential drivers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you also mentioned that, will AI or will autonomous driving, virtual driving, will that replace jobs? And that's something where we clearly say no. I mean, if you want to start today as a career as a truck driver, you can do that, and we believe you will be able to go into retirement and you will not be replaced, because there is quite a shortage of truck drivers in many advanced economies. And as we know, it's not only for truck drivers. There's a shortage of skilled labor in many areas. So when it comes to trucking, we focus on long-haul trucking, which is, you could argue, the most demanding one for a human being. You are away from home, not just for days, but often for weeks. So to go into that and to complement here or go into a situation where you actually have a shortage of drivers makes a lot of sense. And if you then also reflect a little bit how important trucking is for the industry, and if there is a shortage of truck drivers, that means actually by providing additional capacity, we help and enable GDP growth. Speaking about safety, you mentioned it, or you mentioned the 3-point safety belt. Volvo is the company which invented the 3-point safety belt, and we also think that with autonomous technology we can take the next step, which is as important as once the 3-point safety belt was. And why do we think so? When we look at trucking applications, and we can talk about public roads where we continue to see fatalities, accidents, near misses every day. But if you then also look into mining applications, quarry applications, this is actually an environment which is indeed very hazardous. We are operating since a couple of years now in mines and quarries with our autonomous solutions. And we do see that this is a space where you have a lot of accidents, where you have a lot of driver fatigue. Where you continue to see near misses, and by deploying autonomous solutions here and taking the human being out of this dangerous environment is something which we believe is very important. So the safety aspect when it comes to this to trucking application is crucial and very important. And it's of course many people think about autonomous driving, it's about efficiency and it's about whatever, even taking costs out, but that's not how we think about it. We think more about it. It's we add safety, but then we provide additional freight capacity where there is a need of capacity already today.
So you talked a little bit about mining, and I think here in Canada, we are very cognizant of the opportunity in the mining industry right now, mining critical minerals for things like solar panels, or for your industry for electric vehicle batteries, and just the unprecedented scale that we're going to be operating mines and creating new mines and trying to get more metals out of mines. And that is another field where I think we all agree can be greener and can be safer. So I know that Volvo has had some breakthroughs and works with big companies like Rio Tinto, which we're all familiar with. So what are some of the breakthroughs technologically that you've had or that you're working on to improve safety from a mining perspective?
Yeah, great question. I mean, to begin with, Volvo Autonomous Solution, obviously, we benefit from the transformation which is ongoing within the Volvo Group. We have been leading the electrification agenda in our industry, and that is, of course, a great asset for us, which we deploy. But in Volvo Group, we're not only focusing on battery electric, we're also making significant investments into fuel cell technology, which then also in future for mining applications will be rather relevant. Because one of the challenges you have when you speak about mining applications is that with battery electric vehicles, you actually have an issue that the payload gets limited because of the weight of the battery. So you need to be careful here and understand also there are certain limits which you have if you only focus on battery electric vehicles. So fuel cell, we believe over time will be the right answer. But we are today already deploying also electric solutions, electric and autonomous solutions for the quarry and mining industry. What we have is the so-called Tara solution, and Tara is a solution which is built from the start for electric and autonomous use. And we follow here what we call from elephant to ant process. So today, if you look into mining application, quarry application, you see this super large dump trucks which burn a lot of diesel every hour, every day. And what we're doing is we're replacing them with a fleet of smaller vehicles. And these smaller vehicles are electric and autonomous. And by downsizing, we can electrify them. But as we electrify them and as we downsize them, it becomes important that we automate them, because otherwise the cost element doesn't really work. If you would have for a large fleet of vehicles, each a single driver, then of course it wouldn't work. But by combining automation and electrification, we actually make that happen. And that, of course, is very important, particularly for mining quarry applications, where you today have a very high CO2 footprint. So we help our customers actually on their journey towards decarbonization with those solutions. But also, our traditional trucks, diesel-driven trucks, once they are automated, we can also optimize their fuel consumption, and by that also create benefits when it comes to the sustainability agenda of our customers.
So I spoke to another executive in the AV industry probably about a year and a half ago, and I used to always ask about robo-taxis because that's what everybody wants to know, and that's what everyone thinks of self-driving cars. And he says, well, what we're looking at is on these big solar panel farms, sometimes birds will start perching above the solar panels, and then our technicians have to go and scrape off the solar panels. And that maybe isn't the sexiest use of autonomy in robotics, but that's a huge promising area that can make a big difference. And I was like, actually, that is really interesting. So a lot of people maybe these industrial applications aren't sexy until they are. And I think the supply chain is something like that, where none of us thought about supply chain 3 years ago. And then there's this big boat stuck in a canal, and suddenly we're all thinking about supply chain. So what are you all doing sort of from that port's perspective in the supply chain?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've all witnessed and actually can continue to witness that ports have become somewhat a bottleneck. And with ports being a bottleneck, if you look at it a bit more careful, the quayside on a port, so when the vessel arrives and then you have these cranes, that is actually a process which is today already rather automated. But then if you look further on the land side, that is actually where the automation is required. That is where you actually have the bottleneck today. And if you, of course, limit transportation in a port, then of course you limit trade, and then you get the issues in supply chains all around the world. So what we're looking at is how can we actually help ports around the world to automate the transportation flow from the quayside towards the next distribution site, and that's where we're working on, and have established first concepts and have certain pilots running already in a few selected ports. And we believe it's not just ports. We actually think you have logistics centers which are everywhere in the country, where you also have a huge opportunity to further deploy autonomous solutions and then gain the benefits through higher efficiency, higher productivity. But the throughput is the most important thing, that you can accelerate and manage the throughput in a much different way than you can do it today.
So I think there is research and obviously we're still early in the transition to autonomous vehicles, that kind of suggests that many people don't really understand the different levels of autonomy, the difference between cruise and cruise control and autopilot and self-driving, and how alert they need to be and how hands-on they need to be on the wheel. So I guess, are there any common misconceptions that you hear about autonomy or the path towards self-driving cars that you want to set the record straight on?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good topic. I mean, when you think about this industry, autonomous industry, then this is an industry which has raised very high expectations a couple of years ago already. I mean, if you look into the reports, newspapers from 2017, then it would have suggested that by 2020, we would see that as a broad phenomenon already. And when I arrived at the airport yesterday, there was no robotaxi waiting for me. So there are certain things which are not there, even if maybe years ago we thought we would be there. So what we've seen is very much an underestimation of the complexity of this technology. But I believe what we see now, what is in these days, is actually that it is really there now. So it's not about autonomy. Yeah, it's in the future. For us, it's something which is happening. We've, from our side, Volvo Autonomous Solutions, we've deployed our first site, so we are now we're revenue generating, and no longer just talking about investments required. Now we create revenues, which is of course helpful and shows also that this technology is at a different level now. But what we do is we start to deploy it in what we call in a confined environment, where we can really very much control the safety case in a good way by controlling who's actually having access to it or not. But by that, we also learn a lot, and we create this path to then also go into more difficult environments, including going on the public road. But so we have a lot of developments seeing and starting in quarry mining applications, but also in other applications where you're a bit more confined. Then you start seeing robotaxi coming, rolling out. Maybe not with the scaling what once was thought, but it is there. It is coming. But I think the really next big thing is that you will see in the foreseeable future is autonomous trucking. So you will start seeing that in the southern part of the US, in the Sun Belt, not too far distant, and not too far distant future, and that will be a game changer, and that will be something which will really make a difference, because here you have a very strong business case. There's enormous demand for on-highway trucking solutions, because we have this shortage of capacity today. And by creating a new freight capacity, we really will help solve a real-world problem, which I think is much more important than having robotaxis, which I also am a big fan of. But I think the on-highway trucking is a much bigger case, a much better case, and much more important for our economies.
If there is sort of one takeaway, I know we have a lot of decision makers in the room. Don't all throw your business cards at me at once. But if there's something that you want to be sort of the big takeaway about autonomous vehicles for sort of these people to go back and take to their boardrooms, what would be the big message that you want to send home?
Yeah, I mean, autonomous technology, it's similar to utilization of electric vehicles. Here, first movers are really required. It takes some belief in technology, but it also takes some foresight to do that. But the earlier you use it, the earlier you deploy it, the quicker you will learn to how to generate the benefit and how to create the value, and it will definitely give you a competitive advantage. But I think it's always important to connect the two aspects, autonomy with sustainability. It is our belief that this must go together, and it will go together. We are at Volvo. We are really working to combine those two development tracks. As the planet we have, we need to take care of it in a really responsible way. But these two development tracks actually are getting merged, and by that I think. It creates a lot of opportunities for everyone.
Well, as we've heard so much in the tech and AI world, this is really a global race and a global cooperation. So we're so lucky to have you travel so far to share this with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.